And I was very glad to read his book. The first ex-Otobi person to have published a memoir. What interested me was, what did he say about Otobi, NA Senior Primary School? He picked out Sergeant Ali Idoma, who was our PT instructor. And a lot of us, people like him, remember Ali Idoma because he didn't spare the rod, and he punished those he punished. Several times he punished Adobe. And so I was not surprised that he remembers him. I was also taken aback, more or less, when I read the first chapter of the book. Here is a stubborn boy talking about the firmness of his mother's breasts. And I thought that was that was something only someone like him would talk about that. It's an aspect of life that all of us like to keep in secret, but he brought it out in his own unique way. And I congratulate him for writing the book. He didn't dwell as much as I thought he would on Otobi. Otobi was a unique elite primary school, the first primary boarding school in Idomaland, in Benue province. And it produced a lot of people, Idoma people, in various professions. Sadly, given the time we're passing through and all the rest of it, most of them are no longer with us. As a matter of fact, of my own classmates, I can only think about 3 or 4 surviving. And I can think of only one person in his own class who has survived up to this time. Ogezi. And this book does not talk about Otobi. It talks about Idoma culture, more or less. It talks about ADOKA culture within Idoma culture. And he's done a good job of it. There is no way he couldn't have done a good job of it. He's been editor of several publications. And he's a very good writer. And as I said, when you tell him something, he will not say yes or no. When we had a chat with him, inviting him to join us in Newswatch, he didn't say yes, he didn't say no, he left. And we never heard from him again. So, as a matter of fact, I never saw him again until he came to serve Chief Olusegun Obasanjo at Servicom. And I said to him, Oi, what happened? That's the kind of person he is. He will not say no, he will not say yes. He's carried it all his life. And it is his quality, one of the qualities of his life. If he doesn't say no, you can't argue with him. If he doesn't say yes, you can't argue with him. He get away with it. So I am glad that he's promoted Adoka, his own place. He's told extensive stories about his family. The fact that the first time he saw the white man, he was naked. He's talked about some of the catechist and all the rest of them. And I would urge him to expand his book and do a little more on Otobi, because the story of Otobi is being lost. The school is no more. It's been converted into a secondary school. And since there are very few of us who are alive today, we cannot celebrate it anymore. I will urge him to celebrate Otobi.
I also learned greatly that, look, aren't we unfair to our colonial, in quote? Because there's always, I mean, we are all radicals before, and it's always bashing the colonialists, bashing the, but we actually owe a lot to the Europeans. Without the Europeans creating a chiefdom, you would not have had Oturukpo and Ochidoma. And I like the word he used about newly minted social hierarchy. It's in the book. In other words, what became native authority of Idoma was actually the creation of those we are always lampooning and lambasting as our tormentors, as our colonizers. And the role of the captain. The man who decided to build a school using the template of the school he attended in England. Colonialist, EDO, Abi? District officer. So there are many, many elements, traces there which tell me that we owe a lot more to our past. And we should appreciate whoever was in our past. Even McDonald. I used to live on McDonald Street in Ikoyi. They changed it to some name, Ibile Street or whatever, I can't remember. Forgetting the role, even in Idoma land, the role McDonald as governor played in developing parts of Nigeria. So that the book tells me we owe a lot more to our past. And we should appreciate it, we should be proud of it. We should be proud of the values we have led. The values, are you ashamed of yourself? Especially Elagbaje. You know, being who you are, being able to look at any man, whether king or prince, in the face, because of the character you have. That's the value. Of course, my last and most my favorite character. This is a book of many characters. And I was going to tell myself that it's a master class in creative writing. Because it shows you how characters can drive the story. It shows you how too many characters can also distract you from the story. But that character, Sergeant Ali Idoma, is a character that, and it's typical of non-commissioned officers in the army. I saw that. Let me tell you what one non-commissioned officer of his, a regimental sergeant major in the 60s said. He said, the situation in the country is getting worse and worse. That is the NCO for you. They capture it so dramatically. Yeah. So Ali Doma was a very, very instructive character. I want to encourage you. I don't think this is the last memoir we are going to have. We need to see the adventures in Aso Rock too. Yeah. We need to see trees. Because personally, for me, for a man of my generation, and I think for people who are going to come up, most of the stories and the trends will be lost with time. And somebody has to keep reminding the next generation what really happened. So, my friend, we're waiting for my. We are here to celebrate Adobe. So like I've recommended this to many, I used to be one of the people who got the excerpts of the book when he was. And each time he threw one at me like this, I will all night be laughing. And when we call, so I tried this book on somebody else and gave her the copy. The first thing he said to me, and that's what I call blatant vulgarity. Blatant vulgarity. He said,
why did you look at me when you said
oh, I'm sorry. I am sorry. The girl said, this is your friend. So blockhouse matter did this. But she couldn't put the book down, and she got to the last. For several days, she was reading the book. And she said, this book. So, interesting, enthralling, and highly informative. So I recommend it, and I wish our reading public will hang on to it. And I congratulate you, my friend, for a job well done, and we're looking forward to more.
The book talks about a very rural place that modern, not modern, but this generation will not even fathom it, understand the nuances of living life at that time, what the village setting is, because we're urbanizing as faster than we can grapple with. So it's a book that talks about one who grew up in a rural environment, the role of the religion, the church, and how society evolved, the coming of the railway. It's really deep, because even though it's centralized around Idoma, and particularly Adoka and all that, it gives you a picture of the formation of a part of Nigeria. And if you can juxtapose that amongst others, then you begin to get a complete picture of what Nigeria was prior to independence and all that. So I think it's a very good book, and fantastic, actually. I described it as soft porn, though, because, yes, no. Yeah. That's the first thing I told you when I came here. You use this historical anecdote to express yourself, your inner self. That's what you don't see. And, if you go to page 90 and page 130, you could see anytime he talks about, he gets animated. The book, yeah? He comes alive. Even in the writing, you can read he comes alive. Him and Nkechi and their exploits and all that. He comes alive. Sergeant Enuni and his exploits in Burma, and having to go to England, which he never did, right, to go and take on someone else's wife. You could see the animation in the writing, and it's very vivid. And he repeats it over and over again. It's as if that is the central theme of the book, but he masks all that in how he grew up, his mother's breast. You're lucky, that wise, because he's the first surviving child of his mother, so the breast was still firm. Can you imagine if all the others? Survived? It will just be a plate. It will be a flat plate, But honestly, it's a worthwhile read. It's one book that, because it transports you in time, particularly if you have an inkling of what life was in Nigeria at that time. And if you don't, it will help those who have not experienced it. Because I actually gave my daughter to read, and she was like, "That I don't understand some of this." I said, "That's why you should read it," because we're losing a lot. We're losing our history. We don't really know where we come from. In my family, I decided that, look, too many people come up to me, particularly after I became governor, calling me cousin. Now everybody's my cousin because I'm governor, So who are the real relatives? And I decided to put, all that together. And I called. Fortunately, we have, she's still alive. She's 98 or 99. Tell me about this family. And she goes back, tells me about my grandfather, my great-grandfather, and this and that. And we're really trying to document it. We're coming up with a coffee table book and all that. So even within the immediate family, we don't know ourselves. One of my PAs, whom I sacked for something he did, very similar to, if I write a book, we went to Malaysia on a tour, and he went to a nightclub and did a few things. And so when we were leaving, he wasn't allowed to leave because he had brutalized the lady, and not well brutalized, you know what I mean. But so we had to pay extra to get him released so we could, So I fired him, only to find out later that this guy's a cousin of mine. So it's important we know whom we are. So Adobe, thank you. Well done, and congratulations.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for coming. This event is taking place because when Colonel Are read the book, he said, this book is a Nigerian book. That time I was in London trying to get it published. I said, why am I wasting my time talking to people who don't know where I come from? So this gathering here today is the result of us saying, let us gather our audience who know what we are talking about. Now, when I said to you at the back of the story here that the story emanated from conversations that I had with my mother after my father died, and my mother was 90, I was 70 plus, and practically everything that is here was known to everybody. This encounter with between Ella, who was a nudist in our midst. The point I'm trying to make is that even though in the culture, the only person who found it odd was the anthropologist who came. But when I got to write this story, a lot of the stories that were being told on the ground had a different perspective because I had gone to England and I had also attempted to join a nudist club in England. And suddenly I said to myself, no, I had a girlfriend whose father was, no, seriously. No. So then I saw the encounter between the white anthropologist and Ella, who is a self-declared nudist and respected for it. And then the story about how Ella went to England, published a picture that he had with Ella in a UK magazine, nudist magazine, and brought it home and said to Ella, look at you and me here in the picture of this thing. And Ella looked at it. He was very excited. Then he says, well, these people's private parts are covered. Why is my own open? So Ella says, the man said, that's how it is. So why you showed my picture, my nakedness to people I don't know? You just tore up this magazine. This is a standard story among ourselves. It is told like that. But when I combined it with my experience of nudism, then the whole dimension sort of became so real, you know? Here is Ella, who was naturally nudist, and here is an English person who is praying only he could be like him. And they were not speaking the same language, but at the same time, they were getting on well together. So much so that the man got his nickname of the white man who eats black man's food. And practically everything, like the visit of Ochidoma to the coronation of the Queen Elizabeth, it's a story, but nobody actually could quite comprehend it, because leaving Idoma land to go as far as England, it's beyond everybody's imagination. You know? Then the reception that the Ochidoma had in my father's compound to celebrate the success of his trip to England took a different dimension, because I'd been in England and I saw how these people planned things. What the Ochidoma couldn't say to himself, I could put together by knowing this is how English people arrange things. He had a special dinner that was arranged by the first deal of Idoma land. But what can he say to people? He doesn't know them, you know? So all of this sort of came together. That is why my favorite chapter in this story is the situation where I died. I literally died for several hours because of the Chinese flu of 1957. Some of you might remember it. I actually died. And then I resurrected. So instead of just rounding the story, I said, let me create a dream that I had while I was gone. And that makes this particular section of the story interesting, because it was fiction, but it is also based on fact. You know? So I'm going to read to you the dream that I had when I was dead.
My name is Ejiro Umokoro. People call me Lady E. I love books. I love literature. It's actually my religion, literature as a whole. And just being here in the midst of this generational gap from these distinctive persons I'm seeing here. I don't know how many women are of your generation, but it's interesting to see so many men here representative. I love your use of language. I love your capacity to be very imaginative. But may I ask, was that death real, imagined, or something you wished for that you just described in the book?
It was real. I did die. But for several hours, I was dead.
I beg, who certify you dead first?
I told you now, the people were gathered for my inquest. It was true. I died.
What in particular really shaped why you started writing it? Was there a scene? Was there a trigger? Was there a picture or something that activated that desire to want to write this ADOKA Son in particular?
As I told on the back of the story, the conversations I was having with my mother. And we were communicating by, GSM. I was special to her because I was Adobe-Obe. She called me father-in-law. She was completely uninhibited in telling me these things at that age, and I think she enjoyed it because at her age of 90, she had nothing to lose. So everything, she just told it to me as it was, And then when she told me that I was that she was pregnant 15 times, and she started crying. I said, "Why are you crying?" I said, what is the pain about? I said, no. It's like I'm not crying because I'm in pain. I'm actually crying for joy. Because if you have been pregnant 15 times, pain is nothing.
My relationship with Ambrose plunged further when he caught me and his daughter, Nkechi, in one of our many lessons on the differences between boy and girl. Nkechi became my only child companion in the compound when she was nearly double my age, but only a three-quarter my physical size. We had the entire compound to ourselves as playing ground. Our hide-and-seek games had predetermined destinations where, out of sight from everybody, Nkechi would say, "Let me show you the body of a girl." On the day her father caught us, she was bleeding. My first oge, menstruation. Touch it. I touched it. Rub it. I rubbed it. Rub it harder. I rubbed it harder. Then her father walked in and caught us. He slapped me hard and pulled me before Papa. "I caught your son violating my daughter." Papa laughed. You know when you say you're the son of your father? Papa laughed. "What happened, Emmanuel?" I said it was all part of the usual game Nkechi and I played. "What game?" She showed me her thing. I showed her my thing. She rubs my thing. I rub her thing. And she puts my thing in her thing. Papa laughed so loud, I was sure he could be heard from Adoka. Now, my point is, in this historical narrative, what is the cocoa behind this?
It was fun to remember it, and especially because our father drags us to my father, and my father says, "What's wrong?" And I told you, the man was he just went completely,
So I said you spoke so much about your mother and, the central role women play in the life of man, And then we have this cast of characters that you've created: your father, the Chidroma, your grandmother, Ella, Ababa, who was that funny character. Sometimes you even think it's not really. You think it's fiction, rather than a memoir. When you read a book, probably the way you arrange the characters, so distinctive in their different various ways. Now, your grandmother, particularly Grandma Ubiku, very strong character. When you look at her, you look at modern feminism, and you're wondering, did the white man unconsciously borrow it from Africa? because there was a woman who stood up to the men and said, "Look, this is my child, my grandchild must not be brought up in the roadside like a rabbit." And all the men were like groveling at her feet. When you look at your grandmother and what it is now, what exactly comes to your mind?
Well, the respect I had for my mother and well as my grandmother is based on the mutuality of intersexual relationship. Women respect men, men respect women.
My name is Kunle Ajibade. I work for the news and PM News. It's been a terrific session. This conversation with the author of ADOKA Son.
I've attended book reads before. This is quite interesting. It tells you a lot about the Idoma culture and what it was like in those days. I learned a lot.
My name is Adobe-Obe. You will notice the name is the same. All I would say is that this particular book launch has been a very intimate and friendly and cozy experience. And as to the book itself, well, you know, these are the things, when you read things like this, you discover somebody that you've known for so long. You discover new things about them, and it reminds you all over again why you fell in love.
My name is Adobe-Obe. I'm the author of ADOKA Son. The idea of the book launch, as it were, is that we want to draw people's attention to this book because we think it is a good book. It is like the Bible says, we cannot hide it under a bushel. So we need an event to bring it out to people's attention, and hopefully it will be picked up by readers in general who will appreciate the effort that has gone into writing it.